Hey, what's up, everybody? If you're watching this video, you probably got here and want to watch this before you go to another link. The reason why I created this video real quick is I wanted to explain to some people how to clone a repo so they could work on some build and burns. And then I kind of realized, well, they might not know what GitHub is, and if you don't know what GitHub is, you don't know what Git is. And you have to, in the way I installed it, I have Homebrew on my system, and then I installed Git. And just like with anything in coding, it's never as simple as you make it out to be. So I could have sat there and screen recorded this and waited, 3 minutes while I give you a little background on version control, Git, and GitHub. But I feel like they're kind of two separate things. If you want to know this, if you want to know the background of what's going on as I do it, this is what this video is for. If you don't, I'll give you all the instructions to follow along and you'll be fucking golden. I just like knowing what the fuck is going on before I do it, so I figured I'll just share this. So before you get into GitHub, before you get into Git, you have to get into version control. And by the way, I'm not an expert on this by any stretch of the imagination. I'm hoping to provide enough loose concepts that you can understand what you're doing and it's not just copy and pasting. So version control is a way to manage files, right? Source code is invaluable. And there was a time where people didn't track changes, didn't really see what was going on in the code. Basically, we're hacking and slashing for updates and patches, and it's just a mess. And you can imagine how frustrating that is if you had a small group of people, but imagine a giant company without any type of file tracking system to really understand what the fuck is going on. So version control has made leaps and bounds of development here in the last 10 years. And so what version control is, it's a way to manage the file system. And I think its key concepts are it's secure, creates a tree to branch off of, and what else? Oh, you can track files. It's also efficient. So how does it do these things? What's different? Safety, I don't know. I'm not a security expert. People tell me it's safe, so I'm just going to say it's safe. I imagine it has something to do with where everything's located, blah, blah, blah. I'm not even going to pretend to lie to you. One of the biggest pros that it brings is the history to track what the hell has happened to the code as it's been manipulated. That's important because because version control also has branching in it. So let's say that I have the main base of the file, right? I'm writing the source code. I'm in wherever I am in, and you want to make a feature to that. Cool, dope. Here, go for it and start working on that. We can merge the changes later and all of that stuff. But being able to say, hey, cool, here's the update you wanted. I'm going to put it on the main app. And then some other things start happening. We push it back up to production and things start breaking. If you're not tracking the files, then you might not have any idea what the hell just happened, right? But if you can track things specifically, you can track the file specifically and what the hell's been going on, then you can at least start figuring it. You might know what code is wrong, but you at least know where to start looking. So that's the cool thing that version control brings to the table, which the fact that people didn't do that to begin with, I think is mind-boggling. But along comes distributed version control, specifically Git. The guy that created Linux is the guy that created Git, and it happened in 2005. And the difference between version control system and distributed version control system is the way that it looks at the file specifically. So whereas version control looks at the file name and tracks it that way, somehow, through all sorts of crazy black magic, distributed version control system only give a shit about the content. They don't care. File names change, folder names change, all that shit changes. What they care about is from your original repo, the content. From each step, the content. And so if I'm working on my branch, and let's say you're fixing something in the HTML, but we're both working on the same thing, you can bring that right back to the main branch, right? And if there's no content merging problems, it's going to go straight together. It still tracks, it's still secure, and it's still obviously super efficient. Cool. So that's Git. When you use Git on a file, you git init something, and that creates a repo of it. And that's the way that all of the Git stuff is able to work. It implements whatever is going to happen to the files that get compared later. So git init, that creates your repo. And basically the way to think about it is I mean, you can now change and update things, store things separately, but you now have a repo. So now there's GitHub, and there's all sorts of places like GitHub in the world. I use it because that's the way I was taught. BitLocker, there's a whole bunch of, I think some other things, GitLocker, whatever. But GitHub is now a way to say, cool, let's say I'm working on something and I have my repo. And you and I and a few other people are on a team. We're all in a local network, right? That's easy to say, like share through a local network. Well, what if I wanted to get this file system to somebody else? Like, what if I wanted someone else to go and be able to work on my repo, right? It's very hard to do. So GitHub and other places like it come along and say, hey man, we're going to allow you to push up your repo to us, and we'll hold it, and it'll be secure, and we will have it for other people to use. I mean, like obviously, like the ramifications of this are huge. Open sourcing, just like freedom of information, it's crazy. Like things have just blown up. Projects have taken off. But what GitHub is basically doing is taking something from your home computer, assuming, and creating a clone of it that's initializing a repository in GitHub. So you have to, and it's stored at home, and it's also stored in GitHub. So any changes you make from your local file system can be pushed up there. I can also now put projects up there, and I can give you the address, and you can go and clone that. And now you can take my repository, and you can put it as your own. You can mess around with it. You can do all sorts of things with it. But GitHub is a platform that allows us to share repositories, is basically all it is. So those are the big things, and that's what I'm going to be going into in the next video. If you want to follow along, obviously that would be ideal, but you don't need this information to do what I'm about to show you guys.